Saquon Barkley with a historic performance. Are the Houston Texans in trouble? And where should Daniel Jones play his next football? We got a lot to break down today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Happy Victory Monday to those who are observing here on Monday, November 25th. I'm Kyle Krabs. He's Joe Marino. We are looking at all the storylines out of Week 12. Daniel Jones goes unclaimed off waivers, so he will have a chance to pick his spot. We have some thoughts about where that should be in the midst of some quarterback flux across the NFL. Are the Houston Texans in trouble? A team that finished hot last year, had a lot of expectations, dropping an ugly game at home against the Tennessee Titans. But this conversation, Joe, on this Victory Monday for some, not for others, probably has to start with Saquon Barkley's almost 1,400 rushing yards and 126.5 rushing yards per game average, looking very much like a 2,000-yard back right now for the Philadelphia Eagles in a undressing of the Rams on Sunday Night Football.
Is it too petty to start with a conversation about how Eagles fans yelled at us for like 5 years about giving the Eagles a legit running back in mock draft?
How we would never.
I would hate to start the conversation with that, but
I think the best way to put it, I forget who said it. Somebody said it on the timeline. They bought the dip. There were two teams that bought the dip at running back, right? And that's like investing. And when it goes down, then that's when you buy because it's going to come back up. The Ravens bought the dip with Derrick Henry, and he's tied the franchise record for single season rushing touchdowns, and they play tonight. And the Eagles bought the dip on Saquon Barkley as far as running back valuation. And I think the number off the top of my head, Saquon Barkley his AAV is $5 million less than Jerry Jeudy.
Ooh. Whoa, who would you rather have?
Right.
Right.
So it's very easy to say when you have the offensive line that the Philadelphia Eagles do, and you have the offensive weaponry that the Philadelphia Eagles do, but that's part of like the competitive balance of the league and the cash to cap spend and how you structure your contracts. And the Eagles do all of that really well. And they've had enough stability as compared to some of the other teams with cash to cap aggressive tendencies like the Saints and the Browns, that you felt good about putting this piece into this infrastructure and you were going to get something that I didn't think it was going to look like this. But he's averaging almost a full yard better than his previous career best in yards per touch in a season. He's averaging over 6.5 yards per touch this season. It's been outstanding.
It's almost 10 yards a clip last night. I mean, those 10 yards a clip, when we're talking about like Reggie Bush and what was the other guy's name? Was it Lendell White at USC back in the day when they were playing, Portland State or something like that, man. This is National Football League. This is a Rams team that is trying to get a playoff spot. He goes out there and 26 for 255, winds up having 6.2 yards after contact per attempt. What? I mean, pause, 6.2 yards after contact per attempt. That's a good regular total.
Rush. Yeah.
Per rush. Yeah, he's a special player. I mean, we always knew that, right? And you wonder just how much, you don't wonder, how much the Giants held him back, right? So, like, for as much as there's a conversation we had about what happened, congrats to Saquon to get himself in a situation where he can maximize his talent in the way that he's producing. And I mean, it starts, obviously, you think about the offensive player of the year and felt like that was going to be Derrick Henry, and Saquon certainly has something to say about that. And it's like, man, maybe there's an MVP conversation to have with Saquon Barkley if he kind of continues out. I want what he's doing, man. 255, 146 last week against the Commanders, 159 against the Jags. He's at 176 against the Giants. This dude's like over 150 yards a game.
Yeah. Here's you talked about the Giants holding him back, and Pro Football Reference has these numbers. Yards before contact. In Saquon's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons in New York, there were 2 occasions in which Saquon Barkley was provided more than 500 yards before contact in a season. His rookie season, he rushed for 1,300 yards, and about 600 of those 1,300 came before contact. And then he rushed for 1,300 again in 2022, and 749 of them came before contact. 11 games, he's rushed for 1,400 yards. 993 of them are before contact. So he is already career high by about 33%, and he's still got another 6 games left to play.
Eagles are running away with the East, man.
Yeah.
Commanders dropping,
slowing down.
3 in a row they lost, right? And I don't know, it's just is this the Cliff things? Is this the Cliff thing where like we seen them start all the time with Arizona, and then like as the season moves along, it just gets worse and worse? 3 in a row they've lost. I know that Pittsburgh and Philly, there's nothing to be shameful about there, but come on, the lifeless Dallas Cowboys.
They were 10.5-point favorites against the lifeless Dallas Cowboys. And Dallas sacked Jaden Daniels 4 times. They got 2 picks off him. You needed a 91-yard miracle play to put yourself even in position. And then you missed the extra point. Like, that's not on Cliff, but like.
Were you thinking go for 2 there?
No, you're at home.
Man,
you're the favorite.
I'm all in on the go for
energy.
I'm all in on go for 2. Like, you leave it up to so much circumstance, a coin flip. If your defense can get a stop, like if you could score, like right there, just get 1.5 yards and win the game.
But you were playing Cooper Rush.
But you have
the expectation. You were playing Cooper Rush with Rico Dowdle and no offensive weapons in the passing game other than CeeDee Lamb. And you held CeeDee Lamb to 6.7 yards per catch on 10 catches.
It's the only guy they could throw the ball to, man.
How dare you slander Luke Schoonmaker like that?
Man, you got a touchdown. I saw it.
55.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
so I think the context of Dallas's offense, like I would have been totally fine at home with a big jolt of momentum kicking the extra point.
But think about it, it's the extra point. It's not 19 yards, it's 33 yards now.
Dude, I'm watching kickers walk out here, moonwalk out here and hit 50+ yard kicks blindfolded these days.
Yeah, but also not, right? Your kicks are getting blocked left and right. Cairo Santos can't get the ball high enough. Like, I don't know. And meanwhile, the NFC West is we thought it was a mess. It continues to be a mess.
Very messy, right? Like we thought, okay, Arizona, Seattle, house of horrors for their own football team. Arizona can go in there and win that football game. Kyler throws a pick 6. Arizona gets nothing going offensively against Seattle.
Right. Seattle all of a sudden can play defense. Okay, cool. What do you even do with this division? 49ers are in last, dude. They're in last place.
The skeleton crew of San Francisco goes into Lambeau and gets absolutely shellacked. And you don't blame them for that, right? I mean, they're missing a who's who of their best players. Now, it's not an excuse, but their season script thus far has been really ugly, and that's what you probably would have expected if I told you that Kyle Allen was going to go in and start against the Packers in Green Bay.
Every year, there are moments where we say the 49ers are missing all their good players. Like, eventually, this injury, lack of luck that they always have is just insane. When they're relatively healthy, they go to the Super Bowl. Right? Like, that's what we learned about San Francisco. And then when they're not, they don't.
So do we think the wheels completely fall off the bus for the 49ers at this stage? Like, what? Brock Purdy having a throwing shoulder issue is very scary.
Right. Late in the week, all of a sudden, he's not going to play. They did
he
an arm
tried
MRI.
to throw, and they yanked him like very quickly in practice when he tried to throw. This according to Grant Cohn, who was at practice, gave that firsthand report.
Their next one Sunday night in Buffalo.
Don't like the odds there.
No, Bears, Rams, Dolphins, Lions, Cardinals. They might win one or two more games at most.
You think so?
They might. Who are they going to beat? The Bears?
They beat the Bears.
They've had
a lot of head-to-head success against the Rams. Is this assuming Brock Purdy doesn't play?
If Brock Purdy doesn't play, they don't have a prayer.
Correct.
At Miami, hate that for them. Not with the Dolphins defense. Detroit, Arizona, when a game Arizona potentially has to have. 7-win Niners, baby. Speaking of 7 wins, that's what the Houston Texans have right now. They're 7-5. They're
great segue, Joe.
They're struggling a little bit. We're going to talk about that and a very fascinating AFC wildcard picture. Folks, be sure to stick with us. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you use it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free online courses, including Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and a whole lot more. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you could start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. They got a cool deal going on for Thanksgiving. A free square. Tyreek Hill, Dolphins wide receiver, only needs to receive 0.5 receiving yards for the projection to hit. I think he's going to get that. I'd be very surprised if he didn't. And then if you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you can win real cash. Also, Prize Picks puts their members first. So all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get money in as quick as 15 minutes. Plus, they now offer Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Okay. Houston Texans. What are we doing? Losing this game to Tennessee. I mean, I can tell you what happened, Joe. They ran into the Titans' run defense.
Good, yeah. And the Texans got to be able to run the ball. That's their key this year. It's Joe Mixon. That's been their catalyst offensively.
Right. And it's been very up and down, right? They run for 38 yards against the Vikings in a game that they lost and scored 7 points and got smoked. They run for 40 yesterday against the Titans at home and lose that game in brilliant fashion. They run for 56 against the Lions and blow a game in which they had a big lead in that game but couldn't close because they couldn't possess the ball. So you look at some of the common themes across some of the games that they have lost. That is a big piece of the puzzle. And what I worry about is I look at what they have left. They got Jacksonville next week. You feel probably pretty good about that, right? Jacksonville's their own hot mess express. And then they have their bye week. Miami hasn't allowed a team to rush for 100 yards in 5 straight weeks. Baltimore, good run defense. They have the Titans again, and then they have the Chiefs. So those are some tough outs for the ability to consistently run the football. I mean, the Chiefs have given up 100 yards to teams 3 times this season, and one of those was the Ravens in week 1. So I'm just looking at that being the common denominator for a lot of the consistent success for Houston, and I'm looking at the Final Four after the bye, and it's like these teams are playing the run pretty good right now.
Well, I'm concerned about C.J. Stroud. He's not playing good football. He's not. He's processing so slow. He doesn't trust what he's seeing. He's holding onto the ball. He's getting sacked left and right. I mean, he's been over 3 seconds average time to throw in 1, 2, 3, 4 of his last 5 games. He's just taking bad sacks. This sack he took to Devondre Sweat, it can't happen. It can't happen.
Somebody told me it was Bub. Bub on Twitter told me to go look at it. I did not see this individual play. So what can you tell me about the Devondre Sweat sack?
Just no pressure besides Devondre Sweat and CJ Stroud having no regard for it. He's playing bad ball, man, and he's turning it over, and the interception luck is over. And all I can think about is him going on the media tour all offseason talking about how he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL and how how he's figured he's God's gift of football. And I like CJ Stroud. But man, you got to pay your dues a little bit. You got to sustain some success. Like you hear Bill Belichick says it all the time. Like, congratulations, you can make the Pro Bowl one time. Do it again. I mean,
here's a stat for you. No quarterback has lost more yards on sacks this season than CJ Stroud.
100% would unsurprising if you watched him play. Just running backwards and getting mauled.
Sack percent of 8.97% of dropbacks this season for 303 yards lost. That's 5 more yards lost than Caleb Williams has lost on 5 more sacks.
Here's the thing, though. They're the 4 seed in the AFC. They're 2 up on Indy.
They probably need to win 2 games to clinch.
Right. Yeah, they're 2 up on it. They already beat Indy twice, so they have the outright. Indy's having an outright better record, and I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I don't think so either. The Colts dropping that game yesterday to Detroit looked punchless offensively. They have at Patriots, at Broncos, Titans, Giants, Jags.
They'll win 2 or 3 of those.
But at 5-7, you probably need to win all 5 to chase down Houston.
Right. So the Colts have another path to get to the playoffs, although I think it's pretty unlikely. This is a pretty fascinating situation when you look at the wild card in the AFC, where it's currently the Chargers at 7-3 is the 5 seed. The Ravens 7-4. They play tonight against the Chargers. Broncos are the 7 seed at 7-5. Then you got the Dolphins nipping on the heels, 5-6. They've won their last 3. Colts are 5-7. Like, for Miami to get in, I know this is nothing that you haven't figured out, but they just need Denver to slip, or Baltimore to slip, or I guess even the Chargers, if the Chargers get another loss tonight. That's all possible. Like
or the Steelers.
Or the Steelers have you're not wrong about that. They have a lot of challenging games ahead.
Their game schedule is brutal. Now the good news is they're 8-3, so they're very well positioned. But at Cincinnati, Cleveland, at Philadelphia, at Baltimore, Kansas City, and Cincinnati again. Yeah,
it's tough.
So is there separation in the North? And if there is it Baltimore? Like, Baltimore's schedule's no joke either.
Yeah,
and
Baltimore and Pittsburgh.
That starts with that game for Baltimore tonight against the Chargers on the road. And they have Philly after that. And they have their bye, and then they get the Giants in New York. But then they have Pittsburgh, who just beat them. And then they have at Houston, who's a team that's capable but not playing well. So, and then they finish with Cleveland. So, like, really interesting. There's been separation on the polls. In the draft order, there's been separation for the teams at the top of the conference for, like, I think it's Philly and Detroit right now. I know Minnesota's kind of hanging in there from a record perspective, but it really feels like the separation of the teams that are playing the kind of ball that are capable of making a run. And then on the AFC side of things, Buffalo and Kansas City, the 2 teams that I think profile really well. And I know Kansas City struggled against Carolina, but it's just they're going to be there, and their record gives them a lot of cushion. But this AFC middle of the pack, like, a lot of these teams play each other still. Where the Chargers, they go Ravens, at Falcons, at Chiefs, Bucks, Broncos, and then finish at Patriots, at Raiders, their final 2. Like, they're another team that would you bat an eye if they lost 3 out of their next 4 games, with Baltimore, at Atlanta, at Kansas City, and Tampa Bay?
No.
And then they play Denver in a head-to-head.
The interesting team to me is Miami. They don't play any of these teams.
Right. Now,
I think is helpful.
They don't have great conference standing. I think they're 4-4 in the conference right now.
Right, but if you just have to have a better record than one of those teams, and if they get through Green Bay's the challenge Thursday night in Wisconsin,
I think it's comfortably the hardest game they have left on the schedule.
Then the Jets at home at Houston. They're going to. Does Houston scare you?
I respect Houston for sure. I wouldn't assume that's a win, but I think that's a game that you could see a pathway to win.
I think the Dolphins will win that. Hosting the 49ers with no Purdy, if that's the case, and then at Cleveland and at Jets, the only thing you're worried about is it's going to be cold. And I mean, do it or don't.
Oh yeah, hopefully you go to Green Bay and you just put your best foot forward. Okay, it's going to be cold. Deal with it.
Right. Green Bay and late things. It's going to be 20 degrees or something. I'm sure.
Yeah, it'll be below 30. But I don't know if there's no snow, and it's just cold.
Yeah. Hey, they're going to keep scoring for
great primer in the wild card round last year.
Right. No, honestly. Yeah, nothing will be colder than that. So it's fascinating. Dolphins are in it. And if you're Denver, you got to feel like the way Bo Nix is playing, what you have on defense, that you're in it. If you're the Colts, you can't feel like you're completely out of it, although you kind of feels that way. You're still playing teams tough. And then if you're the Chargers, Ravens, or Steelers, don't blow it. But hey, Scott Hansen said this yesterday. It blew my freaking mind. At the start of Red Zone yesterday, he said, it says week 12 on the calendar. Let me tell you something. He says half of the teams that went to the divisional round of the playoffs last year were not even in the playoffs at that time.
Yeah. It was Buffalo.
Yeah, they were 5-5. They were finished as a 2 seed in the AFC.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Texans.
Texans, yeah, because remember Jacksonville was 8-2 to start the year. Had to be the Packers. They were 3-6 or whatever.
3-6.
It was probably either Tampa. It was a Tampa, yeah, because they beat Philly in the wild card round when Philly was falling all over themselves.
Yeah. So
wide open, folks.
A lot of ball game we see that every year. Not maybe to that degree of intensity, but there are going to be teams that we're sitting here looking at their schedule and saying they'll win this game, they'll take care of business, that are not going to win any of those games. And there's going to be a team that has a massive collapse. It's happened the last several years. Think about Jacksonville from 8-3 to out of the playoffs. Think about Miami from 8-3 in 2022 to 8-8 and having to play a win and in, win or go home game against the Jets in 2022. The Eagles, the way they fell apart last year down the stretch. Yeah. Now, they didn't fail to make the playoffs, but they may as well have with how they played against Tampa in the playoff game.
Right.
So who are those teams going to be? It's interesting.
Play them all, see what happens, right, Kyle Krabs?
That's right. That's what they say.
All right. On the other side of it, Daniel Jones, former quarterback of the Giants. We got some stuff to talk about there. Who he should play for next. Folks, be sure to stick with us. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. I visited FanDuel.com after texting Kyle Krabs and saying, hey, man, these overs for Jonnu Smith and Jalen Waddle are locks, right? And Kyle said,
what'd I tell you?
Oh, he said, I'm starting them in fantasy. I said, fins up, baby. And we parlayed that thing, and we made some cash. So check it out. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right. So Daniel Jones parted ways with the Giants over the weekend and presumably not being claimed with his current contract. I think it's a pretty safe bet, right? Mm-hmm. Which means Daniel Jones is going to have a choice to choose where he wants to go play football. Jordan Schultz from Bleacher Report and Fox had a report yesterday. Sources, there's been significant interest in former Giants quarterback Daniel Jones since his release. Once he clears waivers, expect the Ravens, Vikings, Lions, 49ers, and Dolphins to pursue him, not only for a chance to join a contending team, but also to develop in an offensive system where he can learn and grow. A decision could come as early as this week, sources say. That was then parlayed into the Gardner Minshew injury that the Raiders saw unfold late in that game, where Minshew broke his collarbone. He is out for the year. And some people said, well, Daniel Jones, look for the Raiders to maybe be the leaders in the clubhouse for Daniel Jones. If I'm Daniel Jones, I do not want to sign somewhere in which I would be playing immediately. And I feel very strongly about that. And I don't know how you feel about that, but what benefit do I have as Daniel Jones to step into an offensive system on November 26th and be starting football games within 10 days?
It's going to be tough to be successful under those circumstances. And I think that's been hard enough for Daniel Jones to this point, is been circumstances have not allowed him to play his best football. I think there's plenty of issues with Daniel Jones, the quarterback that he is, but it's hard to argue that he's had his best opportunity to be successful. So I think there's a lot of good that you're unpacking there, and that Daniel Jones should be very mindful of his next destination. And it seems like the priority shouldn't be playing. It should be getting yourself in a reasonable situation to show yourself a little bit where you think maybe in the future you could align with somebody there, whether it's, staying on that team and it becoming a opportunity to start, or maybe there's a hot shot coordinator, it's going to be able to be a head coach somewhere that maybe you could parlay. Is there a team that stands out to you as the one for Daniel Jones that provides that opportunity?
I think either San Francisco or Miami make a lot of sense. For branches of the Shanahan tree. Purdy at this point has had a pretty extensive list of durability issues.
Yeah.
Right. And
yeah.
He's going into a contract year next year. And what happens if there's no contract agreement done? What if this is a season-ending throwing shoulder injury for Brock Purdy and they don't get a contract done this offseason? And you're Daniel Jones and you get into the building and you learn the playbook and you inspire some confidence, and then that team decides to re-up you and keep you in their infrastructure, and you can go into a season as a backup and do the Sam Darnold thing that happened in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan, or with Miami and Tua Tagovailoa, find better weapons to throw the football to. Guy misses a month's worth of games in all but one of his NFL seasons. You're probably going to get a chance to play next year for a stretch of play and maybe parlay that into a new spot. You mentioned hotshot coordinators. Frank Smith has gotten some head coaching interviews. He interviewed with the Panthers last year. That offense is back on track, so maybe there is more enthusiasm for that coaching tree for Mike McDaniel. I think those two spots make the most sense for me, for the injury histories of the quarterbacks in front of them, the coaching staffs and the coaching tree that, he has not touched the Shanahan coaching tree. Mm-hmm. And some good weapons in both of those spots as well, with no expectation to come in and play right away.
And Jones was pretty good at operating quick game at Duke.
Yes, he was.
So that combined with he's a pretty good runner.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
do the rollout and the boot stuff.
Maybe Air Coryell under Brian Dable wasn't going to be the.
It makes sense why he likes Drake May so much, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah. 100%.
Because the quarterback that Drake May was at UNC was very different than the quarterback that Daniel Jones was at Duke when you go back to the college evals for both guys.
The key for Daniel Jones is don't do what Drew Lock did. Go somewhere where you think it's a shaky situation you're going to have a chance to play and then you don't get to.
Right. Or if you do, just enjoy collecting your $5 million check and go try again sometime next year. I guess the good news for Daniel is he's collected starting quarterback money already.
Yeah, he's okay. Bills are going to be paid for the Jones household. What about a team like Tennessee? I know that's not necessarily a contending team, but
Tennessee has to be hoping and begging that Shedeur decides that he wants to play for them.
I think so.
He's a perfect fit for the Callahan style passing offense.
100%.
His splits are a lot better without play action passing too. I didn't realize that. I did Shadeur's full write-up over the weekend. And much more proficient when he keeps his eyes on the field and processes the field as compared to having to turn his back to the defense and do a lot of play action stuff. The likelihood of that for Tennessee, though, you just beat Houston. You have 2 games left against Jacksonville still. Probably a long shot.
Yeah.
So I think that's a vacancy that's worth considering.
Yeah, I think 49ers and the Dolphins make a lot of sense for him. And I do think that it's when you just kind of pull back a little bit and you think about like the Raiders, like the last thing that Daniel Jones needs to do is go play more bad football.
Right. What are you in a rush to go do the Baker Mayfield and Los Angeles thing and play a game when you've been in the building for 4 days and then everybody gets excited because you win a start and then like you come back down to earth and it's like, oh yeah, he hasn't been here at all. Like there's no chemistry with anybody that he's throwing the ball to. And I don't think there's any value in him going somewhere to play this season. But that's what we think. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. You can find us on social media. Joe is at the Joe Marino. I'm at Grinding the Tape. We are on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am Kyle Krabs. He is Joe Marino. We hope you guys enjoyed this NFL Week 12 reaction show. We're getting into my latest mock draft for the 33rd team tomorrow on the program, so we hope you will come back and see us then. Appreciate you guys checking out the show. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. We're out of here.